This podcast has been brought to you by Seeker's Guidance, the Global Islamic Seminary. Help us spread the light of prophetic guidance to millions around the world by becoming a monthly supporter. Make a small donation at seekersguidance.org/donate. For as little as $10 a month, you can help people find life-changing guidance.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Alhamdulillah. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to another podcast episode here on Zad al-Talibeen, or Provisions for the Seekers, where we are speaking about various hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and reflecting. And we have arrived to hadith number 59. Hadith number 59. And as you recall, there are some hadiths that we have skipped, but they're very, very few, and we have tried to cover as many most relevant hadiths in our time, especially for youth. So Bismillah, hadith number 59, if you're following in the book, we read, كَم مِّن صَائِمٍ ليس له من صيامه إلا الظمأ وكم من قائم ليس له من قيامه إلا السهر. So in this hadith, let's look at what some of these meanings are. The translation reads, how many there are of those who fast but do not gain anything from it but hunger. And how many there are who pass the night standing in prayer, but do not gain anything from it but sleeplessness. So this hadith is telling us there are a lot of people that are fasting, but they're not getting anything from their fasting. They're getting nothing but hunger. And there are people that pray in the night, and they're not getting anything out of their prayer, right? There's no fruits. They're not getting the point of it. What is the point of fasting? To gain taqwa. To gain a high level of righteousness and spirituality so that you are righteous and you attain a level of taqwa. And I think we've defined taqwa before. Taqwa is to be righteous, basically, to uphold what Allah has commanded and staying away from what He prohibited. Taqwa in its root means to ward yourself off, to ward off harm from you. So the idea of taqwa is warding off the punishment of Allah by being a good Muslim, by upholding and fulfilling your responsibilities. So when we don't do that, and we're fasting but we're gossiping, we're backbiting, we're fasting but we're looking at haram, we're fasting but we're listening to things we should not be listening to. Therefore, we're losing the point of it. And that's why they gain nothing from their fasting but hunger, right? And some, they pray in the night, but they're essentially not getting anything because their motive is to show off, for example. Their motive is, that they're doing it for other than the sake of Allah, and they're not getting the point. And so what this hadith is really teaching us is sometimes we have rituals, there are things we should be doing as a Muslim, but we can't forget the purpose of why we're doing it, and that the purpose is more important than just looking at the outward point of it only. The outward, of course, is important, but that's not the point. The point is we must have ikhlas. We must have sincerity in what we do. We have to do it correctly, and we have to understand there's a point to our worship, which is to gain piety. So may Allah grant you and I, inshallah, the reality of our deeds, that it be for His sake and fruitful. Hadith number 60. This is one of the most important hadiths, and it is one that some scholars mention one of 3 or 4 hadiths that are the core, central teaching of Islam. This is a very important hadith. Its value, if you memorize this hadith and put it in practice, you will find that it has an incredible amount of benefit in your life, and it will give you focus, and it will really help you out. This hadith number 60 reads, Min husnil islamil mar'i تركه ما لا يعنيه من حسن الإسلام المرئي تركه ما لا يعنيه. From of the excellence of one's Islam is that he leaves that which does not concern him. from the excellence of one's Islam is leaving what does not concern you, right? Now, from the excellence of one's Islam is leaving what doesn't concern you. Now, of course, we want to ask a question. What does it mean, what doesn't concern one? So, what doesn't concern one refers to all actions that are not essential. Things that do not have benefit in your religion, things that have no concern about your priorities, your responsibilities, where you're at in your life and what you need to do and know. Or we can say what you need to know and what you need to do. They're not relevant. They're not important. You have other priorities, right? If you're driving a car, your priority number one is to make sure you don't crash the car, God forbid. You have to focus. That's what concerns you. Reading an email while you're driving doesn't concern your driving. It's not for you. Doing something other than what you have to focus on. It's not your concern. So in your life, the most important thing you have to look at is what is concerning you the most in your life. So then we look at, one way to understand this, so we look at obligations. What's an obligation upon you? Praying 5 times a day is an obligation. Fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation. Learning about your faith, learning about what we believe in, all that entails is your responsibility, is your concern. So keep your concern on that. Keep your focus on that, right? You have to go to school. You have to work. That's your priority. Keep your focus on that, right? Leave everything else that has no benefit. And if you do that, then you are putting in practice the most important elements of your faith, right? So basically what the scholars say is anything that doesn't benefit your hereafter or benefit your dunya, your worldly life, leave it. Don't waste your time in it. So if it's something that helps you become a better Muslim, learn more about your religion, that's a good thing. That does concern you. If it has to do with you going to school, getting good grades, finding a halal and good job, that concerns you. So everything that's based around increasing in your ability to perform better at school, whatever career you want to take up, and this is helping you achieve that, that's a good thing. That's not useless. That is not what we categorize as that which doesn't concern one. They say one's time should be occupied in striving for perfection, in acts of worship, and in seeking sacred knowledge. This is the most important thing. So inshallah, we can put this in action and we can inshallah act upon it. Hadith number 61. We are now, mashallah, on hadith number 61. I had hoped to cover up to this point. So alhamdulillah, we're able to get past it, mashallah. Thank you, Allah, for that gift. Let's read on, inshallah. Ala kullukum ra'in. Ala kullukum ra'in. Wa kullukum mas'ulun. Wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi. An ra'iyatihi. ألا كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Verily each of you is a shepherd. A ra'in is a shepherd. And each of you will be questioned, meaning on the day of judgment, regarding his sheep. Obviously this is a metaphor. Doesn't necessarily mean all of us are herding sheep, but that all of us are in a position where we are like a ra'in, a shepherd, responsible for their flock. You can say a leader responsible for their group, a person in the position of responsibility, responsible for those whom they have been appointed over, an imam, a leader, a teacher, a president, a CEO, whatever it is, anyone who's in a position where they're responsible for others and others' rights in particular will be questioned about them on the day of judgment. That did you act justly? Did you fulfill the trust? Did you do what you were supposed to in terms of your responsibility? Right? The hadith continues, therefore the leader of a people is responsible and he will be questioned concerning his responsibility. This part of the hadith does continue. A man is responsible, meaning for the welfare of his household, and he will be questioned concerning his family. A woman is responsible for her husband's home, basically to safeguard its sanctity, and will be questioned concerning her responsibility in that. So all of us, if you're a father, you're going to be held accountable for your children and your wife and your family. Did you take care of them? Did you fulfill your responsibilities? How do we know what are our responsibilities? You look at what are your obligations. What are those things you're absolutely obligated to in terms of your family? If you look for a sister, a woman, you would look at what are my obligations in Islamic law concerning my husband and my children. That does take a little bit of study and learning. For example, the rights and responsibilities of marriage, right? We learn that in fiqh. What are the things men are responsible towards women? What are the things women are responsible towards men? What are the things that children have a right over the parent? What are things that parents have right over the children? All of these things cannot be acquired or attained except through knowledge. Going back to knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. There is no wealth like knowledge and no poverty like ignorance. There is no wealth like knowledge nor poverty like ignorance. وَالْجَهْلُ فِي هَذَا الزَّمَانِ الْفَاسِدِ هُوَ الْمُؤَدِّي كَثْرَةَ الْمَفَاسِدِ, as one of the poets said. Ignorance in this time is the sole contributor or factor to every vice and every evil. It is ignorance, right? And that is the sole cause of all of the problems of the world, is ignorance. So in order for us to be successful as shepherds, we need to, number one, learn what are the rights and responsibilities for the position that you hold. Husband, wife, child, etc. Imams, leaders of organizations have to learn what are their responsibilities in Islamic law. So this teaches us a very important principle, which is any position you take comes with responsibility and you will be questioned. I want to reflect real quick about what are some things, for example, that shows a person, God forbid, will fail in their responsibility of their flock. For example, a father who doesn't teach their children about Allah, who doesn't teach them about Islam, who doesn't teach them how to pray, who doesn't teach them how to recite the Quran, who doesn't teach them about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who doesn't teach them about the hereafter and about their responsibilities. And maybe the father doesn't know, but it's his responsibility to find someone who does know and who can teach his children. There, if the father did that, then he fulfilled his responsibility. Or towards the wife, that he take care of her, he give her a house, he'd feed her, he clothe her, he fulfill his responsibilities. Similarly with the wife towards the husband, protecting his honor and giving him the rights that he deserves, etc. All these are part of simple examples of what we're responsible for. We are now going to look at hadith number 62. May Allah make us all, by the way, righteous, fulfilling ra'in, shepherds who fulfill their responsibilities in the best of ways. Hadith number 62 reads, أحب البلاد إلى الله مساجدها وأبغض البلاد إلى الله أسواقها. أحب البلاد إلى الله مساجدها وأبغض البلاد إلى الله أسواقها. The most beloved of places in the sight of Allah are the masajid, the mosques, the masjids. And the most disliked of places in the sight of Allah are the markets, right? Or the malls, the marketplaces. Why? There's a lot of reasons why. One of the things about why is it abghadul bilad ila Allah aswaquha, the markets, is because the markets and the malls and the places where shopping is done, this is a place where people are seeking the dunya, the world. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, maybe not all, but it's the general custom and is always true, markets are places where people cheat one another, where people lie, where people are heedless of the remembrance of Allah, where men and women mix and they're not always wearing proper clothing and often are not and really never is, especially in the West. So these are places where disobedience of Allah and heedlessness takes place. And there's no doubt that the masajid, the mosques, are places in which people draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They draw near to Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the masajid in the masjid, in the Quran, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه, in Surah An-Nur, that in homes that light shines through houses of worship which Allah has ordered to be raised and where His name is mentioned. He is glorified there morning and evening. That the mosques are the places where the best of all things occur. They're places in which Islam is taught. They're places in which prayers are commenced and fulfilled, responsibilities. They're places in which Quran is recited. The remembrance of Allah takes place. People prostrate throughout the masjid. The masjid is called the masjid because it's the place of sujood. It's the place where prostration takes place. So the masjid took the name from the most honored position in the prayer, which is when you are in prostration, sajda. So masjid literally means the place where sajda takes place, prostration, because it is the most respected position and closest you are to your Lord. So I think it's very clear that the influences of shaitan, deceit, greed, heedlessness are all found in the markets and malls, while the opposite, remembrance of Allah, upholding responsibilities, and many other good things take place in the masjids. May Allah Ta'ala make us people that benefit from the masajid of our places where we live, inshallah. And once COVID is completely gone and you return, that we honor and we look forward to those things, inshallah. Hadith number 63. This hadith is about a very important thing we can always apply. And it reads, Al-wahdatu khayrun min jalisi su, wal-jalisu sadihu khayrun min al-wahdati, wa imla'u al-khayri khayrun min al-sukuti, wa-sukutu khayrun min imla'i shar. Let's break this down. That solitude, being alone and away from the people, is better than being in bad company, while being in good company is better than solitude. Saying what is good is better than silence, and silence is better than saying what is bad. So this is teaching us a very beautiful principle in Islam, which is you always have basically a way out. Allah Ta'ala has always given us a way to save ourselves. He's always given us a way, a road, an opportunity to escape the evil influences around us. If you look in the Quran, for example, Surah Al-Kahf, the story of the people of the cave, when the society got too corrupt, when they couldn't handle it anymore, they retreated to the cave and they saved their religion. We can kind of create, in a way, our own little caves, your bedroom. The point in your house where no one is bothering you. People are maybe talking about things they shouldn't talk about or committing sins. You can always go to your room, lock the door, or stay in your room, and you will protect yourself from that, right? Maybe there are righteous people over. Maybe you're in a position where you can hang out with people of knowledge and benefit from their company. In that case, it's not good for you to be alone or away from them. It's good for you to sit in that gathering so you can benefit from their company, from their words, from things that you'll learn from them, from observing their character and their behavior. That will have an effect in your heart. Also, what is indicated in this hadith is that silence is a very, very good thing, but that speaking something that is good is better than silence. And this echoes the hadith, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut. Whoever believes in Allah in the last day, this emphasizes in what's to follow is extremely important. Whomever believes in Allah in the last day, let him speak good let him speak what is good or remain silent. So silence, man samata najah. Whoever remains silent has been successful and protected. So silence is always a good thing, but speaking is better. And being alone is always good, except being in good company is better than being alone. But to be in bad company, leave it, shun it. And to say bad things, leave such talk. Such speech and company, one is obligated to really leave in search of the opposite, which we just read. The last hadith that we'll cover for today is a hadith about death. Tuhfatul mu'mini al-maut. Tuhfatul mu'min al-maut. Death is a gift for the believer. That's right. Death is a gift for the believer. So in the commentary we read an explanation that one who truly believes, it is through the gateway of death that he finds the door to eternal contentment and happiness. There are many hadiths that mention whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet them. But in order to meet Allah, our beloved, our Lord, the one who created us, the one whom we are journeying, should be and has to be the sole source of all of our love and worship to is Allah. Death is the cause or means that brings such a person to what they were created for. We were not created to be on earth for eternity, right? We were created to achieve eternal salvation. We're created to attain Sa'adat al-Kubra, the great felicity, right? The high lofty ranks, eternal pleasures of paradise. But in order for us to go from this abode to that abode, we can't physically go there. We have to go through the passage of death. All that is good cannot be reached except that death must take place. And just to indicate or give you an idea, some of us think that death is such a bad thing. We have to realize as Muslims, death is not a bad thing. If you're a believer and you die, no one who dies ever wants to come back to the world. Why is that? Because they see the sense, they feel and smell the sense of paradise. They see the great blessings, the great pleasures of the hereafter. No way do they want to come back to this world. In the hadith, it says that the only person who actually wants to come back to the earth is a person that died as a shaheed or a martyr, that wants to come back and die again because of the great honor that Allah has shown the martyrs. But everyone else, they have no inclination to return to the world. That means even if they own 20 Lamborghinis, they had amazing palaces and the best places on earth, still they don't want to return. Because what they're witnessing of the hereafter, what they're witnessing of those types of pleasures is way more beloved to them than this world. And there's also another tradition that mentions al-mautu rahatul mu'min, that death is a comfort for the believer. Mawlana Jalaluddin al-Rumi, one of the great scholars, he said, when you come into the world, you're crying while those around you are laughing. When you die, you should die in a way and in a state with Allah that as soon as you die, you're received by the angels in the best of ways, and therefore you are laughing and enjoying while those around you are crying. You see, it's the opposite. You come in the world crying, those around you are laughing because they're enjoying the birth of a new child. While you leave this world, those around you cry, but you're enjoying and laughing because of the pleasures that is open for you now in the next world. And no doubt about it, and I'm sure you've studied that death is the beginning of all of the blisses. In other words, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said the grave is either Rawdatun min Riyad al-Jannah, either a garden from the gardens of paradise or a pit from the pits of fire. So the grave is the beginning of all of the pleasures that are unveiled for the person. So they're going to be very happy. And this starts the beginning of our eternal journey into the next world. So death is not a bad thing. Death is a gift. And we have to prepare for death, as that's what matters. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said in another hadith, make much mention of that which destroys the pleasures. Right? What are we talking about? We're talking about remember often that which destroys the desires, the pleasures, which is death. When we remember death, what do we mean by remember death? We mean prepare for the grave. Prepare to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prepare by learning, praying, fasting, turning to Allah, doing dhikr, making dua, seeking knowledge, being righteous, having good character, being good with your parents, by being good with your neighbors and those around you, not committing major sins, trying to stay away from minor sins as much as you can. All of that is preparing for the hereafter, preparing to meet Allah in the grave. And so when that moment comes, because of your hard work, hardships and endeavors that you did for the sake of Allah, you will find all of that present as rewards for you. Right? And the believer who dies, this is the greatest pleasure because now he's united with that with whom he loves, Allah and His Messenger. So don't look at death as a really sad thing or bad thing, but look at it more like what are we doing to prepare for it. And one of the great scholars of our time who passed away a few years ago, Murabit al-Hajj rahimahullah, who was the teacher of our teacher, he said that once when he was young, I asked my teacher what really made the Shaykh an incredible scholar, maybe one of the most brightest of our time. He said when he was a young man, about 19 years old, he had a Shaykh who was very, very well known throughout the Muslim world. He was very famous, very righteous Shaykh. And Murabit al-Hajj at that time was around 19 or so, a young man studying with the Shaykh. He said one night the Shaykh went to go lead the prayers. When he came back, a very powerful venomous snake attacked or bit him, and the Shaykh died there shortly after. And that basically shocked Murabit al-Hajj to the core, that such an established great scholar in the midst of his prime in teaching, all of a sudden death came in one night, right away, through the means of this reptile. He said, A'udhu billah, we seek refuge in Allah and His help, that if death can come suddenly like this, I must prepare for death. And then basically, may Allah reward the Shaykh, and I kid you not, and I was blessed to visit him in West Africa before he died. The Shaykh spent the next 95 years, give or take a few, and I'm not kidding you, 90 plus years after that, until the age of about 115, doing nothing every single day but preparing for death by teaching, learning, praying, doing dhikr, reciting Quran. Every single moment of his life was spent in preparation for death. And many of the righteous of the early generation of the Salaf as-Salih, the righteous predecessors from the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the two generations after, it was said about many of them that if they were told, hey, you're going to die tomorrow, they wouldn't be able to change one thing that they were doing. In other words, they were working so hard to prepare for the hereafter, they couldn't add a few more rakats, they couldn't add any more recitation of the Quran, they couldn't do anything extra because they were giving it everything they got. And brothers and sisters, if you were to reflect in our lives, on a scale of 1 to 10, ask yourself, how much effort are you giving in preparing for death? How much effort are you giving in learning your religion and preparing to meet Allah? If it's down to like 1 and 2, we should bring it up to maybe 6, 7, and then 8, 9, and inshallah 10. This is what we got to do. We have to keep working hard because everything that we're doing has an eternal impact. Everything that we are saying and doing and thinking and wanting to do, etc., has an eternal impact in our hereafter. So if you're wise, al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'd al-maut. It's a beautiful tradition in the Ayyuha al-Walad of Imam al-Ghazali. The intelligent one is the one, al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'd al-maut, the one who examines himself, examines his character, works on himself and prepares for that which is after death. And the ignorant one is one who is heedless. He has false hopes about Allah, doesn't work on himself, and that doesn't understand the realities of the next world, is heedless, and etc. I forget the second part of this exact wording, but that's what basically it entails. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit all of us by what we've heard and grant us the success and the tawfiq to act upon these words. May Allah grant you and I the best of this world and the next. Protect us all from the hell of fire and from the punishment of the grave. Make us die as Muslims, resurrected as Muslims, and under the banner of the Prophet Muhammad on the Day of Judgment as Muslims. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Say Ameen. Jazakumullah khair for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until the next time.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was brought to you by Seeker's Guidance, the Global Islamic Seminary. Visit seekersguidance.org to access reliable Islamic knowledge taught by qualified teachers. We offer a wide range of courses, podcasts, articles, and a world-class answer service. Support us in spreading free, reliable Islamic knowledge to millions around the world by becoming a monthly supporter. Visit seekersguidance.org/donate and make a small monthly commitment today. Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whoever guides someone to goodness will have a similar reward." So don't forget to share this podcast and spread prophetic guidance.